All right. Well, hello. Welcome to the Civic Academy. I'm here to talk to you about the Engineering Services Division. So my name is Michael Miller. I'm the city engineer. I basically I got my civil engineering degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Started my career at the County of Tulare back in 1990, spent 10 years working there. And then in 2001, I came to work for the city of Tulare, and I've been the city engineer since 2013. So just to give you an idea, what is the purpose of the Engineering Services Division? Oh, there we go. So really, you can look at it in two ways. One, we serve an outward purpose. We assist citizens, business owners, and economic interests in their efforts to improve or develop their property. And then an inward purpose, we ensure that public improvements within the city are constructed in accordance with applicable city, state, and federal standards. Conformance with such standards provides for a high standard of living, ensures orderly growth that meets the needs of our citizens, and does so in a manner that protects public health and safety. So that's really what's at the core of what we try to do. So let's start by looking at the engineering division. Engineering services department's kind of broken up into two divisions. There's the engineering division, and then there's the project management division. The engineering division provides services vital to the community and economic development functions of the city through reviews of maps, plans, and inspection of new development projects. Basically, we're just looking to ensure compliance with applicable city, state, even federal standards and regulations. We provide short and long-term planning and design services to meet the city's public infrastructure needs. So some of the core functions we perform, we review final maps. Basically, when somebody has a piece of property, they want to either build a subdivision on it or do a parcel map to split it up into separate parcels. We review those for compliance with the State Subdivision Map Act. We review public improvement plans if they're required to do street improvements, water, sewer improvements. We review those plans to make sure that they meet standards. We look at things from a perspective of traffic engineering for a new subdivision, where are the street lights going to go, where are the stop signs going to go, that type of thing. We also do provide design support services to other divisions in the city, most notably the Public Works Department. As they do street projects, we'll assist them, or if they're having issues with an existing water, sewer, storm drain facility that is failing or needs some work done on it, we'll help them with that. We do a lot of reports, annual reports for landscape maintenance districts, contributed capital reports, where basically we're reporting and making record of improvements that were constructed during the course of the year. Oversize, basically, to get into that, anytime that we require a private developer to do improvements that benefit the entire region, or basically the larger population of the city, instead of just for their particular property, they're eligible to be reimbursed for those because it's serving a greater good than just what they needed for their property. So that's what oversize refers to. Intake and issuance of encroachment permits. We'll talk more about what encroachment permits are. Oversized load transportation permits. There's basically regulations on how heavy and how large trucks can be. And there are provisions for larger than standard trucks to be on city streets if they go through this process of going through a permit. Gives us a chance to say, after you're going to come through town, stick to these roads, because we know that you're not going to like knock down low poles and that type of thing. Development impact fee program. I'll talk more about development impact fees later. Pavement management system. That's basically just a system where we try to keep track of the condition of all the streets in the city. And yes, we know they're not in particularly good shape. And oversized reimbursements. That's just tracking and paying back developers for those oversized improvements I talked about earlier. So in the engineering division, we have a total of 8 positions. There's myself, the city engineer. We have one senior engineering assistant. We do have a vacant senior engineering position that we're trying to fill currently. We have 3 engineering assistants and 2 public works inspectors. The project management division, their purpose basically is to coordinate and implement the Tulare project management system. Basically, this manages the city's capital improvement program. Basically, the capital improvement program is where we identify large projects that the city wants to undertake ourselves. And so they assist in identifying needed city projects. They help obtain approval and program those projects into the capital improvement program. They review and approve pay estimates for city project billing as we're actually doing these projects. Provide oversight of labor compliance, making sure that certain federal or certain funding sources have requirements that you do prevailing wage. You pay prevailing wage on it. Basically, all city projects require us to pay prevailing wage, but there's state and federal requirements that are slightly different. So they're in charge of making sure that we comply with those. When putting together and identifying projects, they look at potential funding sources, help identify those, coordinate necessary design and construction contracts. And when we're doing the construction, they ensure that we comply with any funding requirements. So the project management division has a total of 5 positions in it, 3 project managers, and we had 2 construction coordinator positions. They're currently vacant. We probably are not going to fill those. We're doing pretty well with just the project managers at this point. And of course, we're always looking for ways to keep costs down. So when I talk about public improvements, what do I mean by that? Here's some of them. Streets. You're all familiar with streets: the paved surface, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street lights provide roadway lighting. Water systems, those are the main water mains and services to each house. Wells that draw the water up from the groundwater to supply the city system. And we do have water storage tanks now. We've always, or quite some time, we've had the big one there near Tulare Union, but we've been adding new water tanks throughout the city to help provide redundancy in our water supply. Sanitary sewer system, there's sewer mains, laterals to each house and business. Lift stations, that's because basically our sewer system is a gravity fed system. Basically things flow downhill, but we can only go so far before we need to lift them back up so that they can flow downhill again. Wastewater treatment plant, the city has 2 wastewater treatment plants. We have one that treats domestic waste and we have one that treats industrial waste. And our industrial wastewater treatment plant is pretty large and impressive for the size of our city because of all the dairy industry that we have here. Storm drainage systems, pipelines, drop inlets, drainage basins where we send the water to either be a detention basin where it gets pumped into TID ditches, or more commonly now it's a retention basin. We put the water there, allow it to slowly perk down into the ground. And also lift stations there because those systems are also gravity fed systems, and sometimes you have to lift it back up to keep it going. Traffic control devices, those are stop signs, traffic signals, speed limits, parking restrictions. We're in charge of overseeing that. And then transportation planning. So that's a pretty big component. This is the one I enjoy the most, frankly, is trying to look ahead to what the city's needs are going to be in the future. Determine what type of roads we need, the roadway classifications. Basically, there's arterial roadways, collector roadways, and local streets. So arterial roadways, those are the big ones. That's like Prosperity Avenue, multiple lanes. The intention for that is to move people clear across town, one end of town to the other. Collectors are the next step down. They are not as wide. A good example would be Paseo del Lago in Del Lago. The intent of those is for people in the neighborhoods, you come off of your local street, and those are the roads that are going to take you to the arterial streets, get you out of the neighborhood and onto the arterial streets so you can go across town. And then, of course, local streets are just what's basically in front of your house. So we have to think about, especially like collector streets. In the past, there wasn't necessarily the best thought or planning going into those about allowing homes to front on them. So that's where we get a lot of complaints, right? People talking about people driving too fast in front of their homes. Picture like if you have a house that has your driveway on Bardsley Avenue or Las Piñas Street, and you know how fast traffic goes and high volumes of traffic. So we try to be mindful of that now. Basically, we try to only keep driveways for new residences on local streets, collector streets. We try to, minimize the number of driveways that are on those just to avoid those types of issues. We're also looking ahead for like interchanges on our state highways. You'll probably notice or know that we have a new interchange under construction right now, International Agri Center Way out there by the farm show. Grade separations. Since I've been here, we've done the Cardinal Avenue grade separation up and over the railroad tracks. We did the Bardsley grade separation where we took Bardsley underneath the railroad tracks. We put in the Santa Fe Trail overcrossing over J Street and the railroad tracks. So that's what those were. That was a very unique opportunity. Specific funding sources became available for those types of projects. Those funding sources are no longer around. So I'm glad that we were able to get 3 when we did, when very few people actually did. So this is what your basic street looks like, right? A lot of people don't realize that it's a layer cake. You've got the asphalt surfacing sitting on top of an aggregate base that's kind of like a gravel type material that then sits on top of the native soil. So that's how our streets are constructed. And what a lot of people don't realize is underneath the street, there's a lot more. There's the water, the sewer, the storm drain system. It gets really crowded under there, especially when you start also thinking about a lot of the, the gas lines, electrical conduits, telecommunications. It seems like a street's pretty wide, but when you start trying to fit everything in there and making sure that they don't conflict, especially when you have services going off serving the houses to the side, it gets pretty complicated. So just want to focus on a few of the things, core functions in the engineering division that we get the most public interaction with. The first would be the intake and issuance of encroachment permits. So what's an encroachment permit? Anytime anyone, private citizen, contractor, whoever, wants to construct improvements within the public right-of-way or within a city easement, it's required that they obtain an encroachment permit from the city. The exception is landscaping, provided it doesn't impact traffic safety and landscaping irrigation systems. So this permitting process is intended to protect existing utilities, prevent future conflicts between property owner improvements and planned city improvements, and to give the city a chance to review and ensure that proposed improvements meet any applicable standards. Some things to note: installation and repair of curb, gutter, and sidewalk in the city of Tulare is the responsibility of the fronting property owner. A lot of property owners don't understand or recognize that, realize that. They see the sidewalk in front of their house is cracking, it's raising up, it's becoming a problem. They'll call the city saying, hey, you need to come fix the sidewalk in front of my house, only to find out that, well, no, it's your responsibility to fix it. And now that you've let us know there's a problem, we're going to make sure you do fix it. And this is all based upon the Streets and Highways Code. So for the vast majority of jurisdictions in the country, including the state of California, this is the way it works. There may be some exceptions out there where some cities have made arrangements, and there is an exception for properties or areas that were within landscape and lighting districts. So a lot of these collector streets that we talked about, we require them to do what's called backing lot treatments. That's where um, the developer puts in landscaping, block walls, sidewalk, and then those areas are put into a landscape maintenance district where we assess all the properties within that district, an annual fee that goes in part to maintain the sidewalk. So in cases like that, if it's within a landscape maintenance district, then the city would make those repairs. This property owner is also responsible for their sewer lateral all the way from their house to the point where it connects into the sewer main that's in the street. That's another thing that people, they assume that maybe they're only responsible for, right at their house and in their house. They don't realize it goes all the way into the street. So when there's a problem with their sewer lateral failing over time, it's sometimes a surprise when they have to pay for that, those repairs. So the property owner is also responsible for their water service, but this is a little different. The city owns the water service from the main in the street up to the meter box in front of the house. And the reason for us doing that is we want to have control over that meter box to make sure that we can get proper readings of how much water is being used for the purpose of billing. So then the property owner is responsible from the meter box to their house. It's another one we get a lot of public input about, or inquiries about, traffic engineering. Namely, why doesn't the city put in a traffic signal or put in a stop sign or lower the speed limit? So to ensure uniformity among how traffic control devices are installed across the nation, the Federal Highway Administration created the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, known as the MUTCD. It was recognized that establishing these uniform standards resulted in a safer environment for all roadway users, vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. The state of California has adopted a slightly modified version known as the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So the California, or called the CAMUTCD for short, provides standards by which intersections should be evaluated for the addition of stops, controls, or traffic signals. So some of the things they look at when they're making that determination of whether a stop sign or a traffic signal is warranted, it should be installed or recommended to be installed, would be collision history, the volume of vehicles going through the intersection, the delay resulting, say like if you're on the minor street and you're waiting to pull out onto a busy major street, how long do you have to sit there before you finally get a gap in the traffic to be able to pull out? That comes into play. And they do look at pedestrian counts also. One thing that's always confusing to people is that it specifically states that you're not to put in stop signs for the purpose of controlling speed. A lot of people, that's, when they're calling it, asking for a stop sign on a local street especially, it's because they feel people are driving too fast. And if it would just put a stop sign in, it would slow things down. Well, it specifically says that we're not to put in stop signs for that specific purpose. So the California MUTCD refers to the California Vehicle Code provisions regarding how speed limits must be established for them to be enforced by law enforcement agencies. In California, the presumption is that 85% of the drivers will drive at a speed that is reasonable and prudent. So regulations therefore require that speed limits generally be established based upon the 85th percentile speed. So when we're looking at speed limits and setting speed limits, we'll go out, we'll do radar speed studies that then they do a statistical analysis to determine what speed 85% of the drivers drive at or below. And that's the speed that we're supposed to set as for it to be enforceable under state law. There's a lot of debate whether people are reasonable and prudent, 85% of them anymore. I would say maybe not, but that's the way the law is currently set up. And for our law enforcement to be able to actually write an enforceable ticket for speeding, the limits have to be based on that process. Another area that maybe people don't know so much about, but I thought was worth highlighting is our development impact fee program. So development impact fees, it's a one-time fee that we charge to new development projects to help mitigate or offset their financial impacts to the city. For example, a new residential development will increase the amount of sewage that our domestic wastewater treatment plant has to be able to treat. So at some point, we're going to need to expand the treatment plant facilities to accommodate the impacts of new growth. So the development impact fees that we collect are held in a special account to be used to help make those improvements at some point in the future to address those needs. So we have several categories of development impact fees. Law enforcement, that goes towards paying for if we need to expand. The police department, pay for additional vehicles for new officers, that type of thing, new equipment. Fire, same type of thing, if we need new fire stations to handle the new growth. General government facilities, that would be like the city corporation yard, right? As the city grows, we're gonna have more and more refuse collection vehicles, more obviously people working in our public works department. It's gonna need larger buildings. So this is all to help pay for that, those increases. Library, parks, transportation, storm drainage, wastewater, water, and groundwater recharge. So switching to our project management division, just wanted to give you an idea of the types of projects that they are currently working on or have recently finished up. We had our Pleasant Avenue Street Improvement Project. That project included street improvements, water improvements, sewer improvements, storm drain, and it is also responsible for constructing the new traffic signal at Pleasant Avenue and West Street. That project stretched from Enterprise Street all the way to H Street. So it was a pretty major stretch there. Elliott Track and Street improvements, that was over near Mulcahy Middle School, Roosevelt, that kind of area, Bardsley and West area. That project included street, water, and sewer improvements for several streets, local streets in that area. Pratt Street improvements, basically it was just limited to Pratt Street from Bardsley Avenue up to Inyo. It was a street water and sewer project. And Sycamore San Joaquin Street improvements, that was over here across from Tulare Western. You may have remembered seeing some of that improvements on Sycamore, San Joaquin, some of the other streets, Highland, Delwood, between Cherry and Blackstone. And that project also street, water, sewer. And we also did a little few median improvements in Blackstone Street there. Another thing about these projects, street projects, when we list streets, we're also addressing ADA requirements for like the ramp returns at the intersections to make sure that the ramps meet current ADA standards. So those projects were recently completed. The projects that are currently in construction, we are working on Academy Apricot Street improvements. That's very close to the Sycamore ones, just a little further to the north. It's also street, water, sewer, storm drain improvements. International Agri-Center Way Interchange project, that's one that's actually being done by Caltrans, but we play a role in it, and that it's the old Commercial Avenue alignment, and to facilitate the new interchange, we're having to relocate some of our existing utilities in conjunction with that project. Tulare Avenue, Morrison Street roundabout. I don't know how many of you have seen that one. It's been under, yeah, east of Mooney. That one's been a little troublesome. We ran into a hiccup. The design plans, there was a bit of a bust in them, and it's been resolved now. I believe today they poured concrete, even in the rain. Yeah, even in the rain, they poured stamped concrete in the medians, and so they're back underway, and hopefully we'll finish that up. No, it's just to make the roundabout. Basically, they did a traffic impact study for that new residential subdivision that's on the north side of Tulare Avenue. It would be the northwest corner of Tulare and Morrison, basically. And it added enough traffic to that intersection that it triggered the need for either traffic signal or a roundabout. It's a state highway intersection. So state highway intersections are Caltrans jurisdiction. So they had to go through a process where they worked with Caltrans to figure out what type of improvements to make at the intersection. Caltrans wanted a roundabout. Basically, it was a big move to go with roundabouts. They're safer. Basically, a traffic signal, somebody runs a red light, you could have a car going 55 miles an hour, fly through a red light and T-bone somebody. That's going to be a very severe accident, usually a fatality. Roundabout, you got to slow down to negotiate a roundabout. So traffic generally slows down to 25 miles per hour, roughly in there. Generally, the worst thing you're going to have happen is kind of a side swiping type collision. So they really are. Studies have shown them to be significantly safer in the long run. They also have lower maintenance costs. You're not paying for the electricity and the maintenance of that traffic signal for now into perpetuity. Basically, you just have the lighting to illuminate the roadway. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot more roundabouts in the state of California. Prosperity Avenue. Huh? Yeah, we do. Prosperity Avenue, West Street. Council member Sayer, a particular interest of this project that has gone on forever. Seems simple enough that we were going to put in a traffic signal at this intersection, but we needed to widen the roadway going into the intersection, all four legs, and that required us to get right of way from adjacent property owners, basically to be able to do the street widening. That process, sometimes it goes smoothly, other times it does not. And in this case, it has not gone smoothly at all. And every time we thought we had reached a point where we got it, something would pop up. There was a Tulare Irrigation District ditch that's north of Prosperity Avenue on West Street that we thought would be a fairly simple thing. And when talking with the Tulare Irrigation District, it turned into a much more complicated improvement that needed to be done. But really the biggest issue was the right-of-way acquisition. We had some property owners that maybe didn't respond all that quickly. We had a couple instances where the property sold while we were in the middle of negotiations and we had to start from scratch all over again. And then the latest thing is Edison needed to acquire some easements to relocate some of their power poles. And, not within the city right of way, they were going to have to get a private utility easement from the property owners because their lines are going to hang over the property slightly. And that process was not going smoothly for them. So now the city's assisting them in acquiring those easements. But the whole thing has just taken an incredible amount of time. Cross Avenue street improvements. We're in a similar situation. We were in right of way. I think we have resolved all the issues. Haven't reported this to council yet, so Terry, you're first to hear this, that the property owner, we had to require easements for Edison from. Yes. The property owner we were dealing with there for an Edison easement, we seem to have come to terms with. So that one hopefully will move forward nicely. International Agri Center Way extension. So this is a project, we're getting this brand new interchange in on State Highway 99 that's basically going to connect to Las Piñas Street. But it doesn't really go anywhere beyond Las Piñas Street. So this project would actually extend International Agri Center Way, or formerly Commercial Avenue, all the way to Turner Drive. At that point, now you're going to free up traffic. People coming from Mooney Boulevard could come down and take that road and use the new interchange instead of trying to get through the Page interchange, which we all know that's not a very pleasant experience going through that interchange with all the trucks. Moreover, Caltrans is about to start their next phase of widening of 99 through the city of Tulare. And basically from Prosperity Avenue all the way down to Avenue 200 at the airport, they're going to widen to 6 lanes. part of doing that, we have worked with them to include redoing the Page Avenue interchange. And to do that, they're basically gonna have to close that whole interchange down. So it's gonna be very important that we have this new interchange at International Agri Center Way to basically take up the slack while that page is closed. And the last one, we have Mountain View Street Improvements. That's a project currently in design. It's a street water sewer project, basically go through an existing neighborhood, replace any old water sewer lines. Some other projects that are a little more out of the box for us. We're used to dealing with street projects, but this last couple of years, we've been dealing with some other interesting ones. Zumwalt Park renovation. You've all seen that. Just turning out really, really well. Building a amphitheater and putting in substantial improvements in the park, a playground, splash pad, expanded restroom facilities. We are hoping this will be done at the end of March. It's still a little bit up in the air as to the exact time, but that's what we're shooting for right now. Tulare Business Incubator, that's the old county courthouse that's on the corner of Tulare Avenue and N Street, as in Nancy, that concrete building that's currently all kind of fenced off. It used to be a county courthouse, sat vacant for many years. City purchased it. We're basically converting it to be an incubator, business incubator, going to be in partnership with our Chamber of Commerce. Startup businesses can come in, lease space in there for discount rates. There's going to be classes, I believe, offered to help people with their new business startups. There's also going to be some police services located in that building as well. Tulare Homeless Shelter Project, another project near and dear to Councilmember Sayer's heart, is a project to build a 400-bed homeless shelter. It's located on O'Neill Avenue between K Street and O Street, kind of across from, what's the name of the high school there, the continuation high school? Is it Civic? Yeah, okay. This is actually a very neat project. It's unique. It also has a component of it that's going to have a modular village for people to, basically it's going to be multiple steps, stages you could move through. There's the entry level, low barrier, come in. There's going to be a bed for you. It's going to be a very big common area. There's a next stage where if you've taken on some responsibilities, maybe helping out at the shelter, doing things, you can move into an area where you have a little cubicle walls, a little more privacy. Take a step up and maybe you're doing even more volunteer service, engaging in training activities to try to help raise yourself up out of that situation. And there'll be basically little rooms that have doors for even more privacy. But the ultimate then would be these little modular village units that are even a step above that, where it's basically you'd have your own little room in this 2-room buildings, 16 buildings. So Canine Bayne Dog Park, that's under construction. It's north of the Santa Fe Trail between N Street and O Street. Well 43, that was an existing city well site at Bardsley and K Street that we are drilling a new well. Pratt, Matheny Tract, I Street water main connection. The Matheny Tract, the city partnered with the county and the state of California to provide water service to Matheny Tract. And part of that was the state agreed to help pay for improvements to put water main connections in to better serve that area. And so this is kind of a follow-up to that project. It's basically a water line in I Street between Page down to what's the old Olson Street alignment, but basically to serve Matheny Tract. Highway 99 water crossing north of Prosperity Avenue, that would just provide better connection in our water system. Tulare Avenue, Highway 99 gateway improvements. That's a project that the city manager is looking at just to try to improve the optics for somebody who's coming to Tulare, they get off of Highway 99 on Tulare Avenue. And what do you see? I mean, provide some type of signage, right? You want to go to downtown, downtown's this direction, and Zumwalt Park's over here, and that type of thing. Try and build up a little excitement and help with economic development. Similarly, downtown Tulare intersection treatment, we're looking at council designated the intersection of Kern Avenue and K Street as Olympians Square. And we're trying to figure out exactly what we could do at that intersection to make it special. And just to honor the Olympians from the city of Tulare, because that's a pretty special part of our history. Here's a few pictures, just to pictures sometimes look nice after hearing me talk so long. This is our Academy Apricot Street Improvement Project. You can see the picture on your left. They have removed the roadway surface. They put in new base rock. They're compacting it. It's prior to the new asphalt being put in. But before they did that, they dug down, and you can see that's where they're doing some new water main replacements. It ends up being quite a project. And here's what the finished product looks like, right? It's what we like to see, the nice fresh black asphalt. This is the International Agri Center Way interchange under construction. They've got the false work up for constructing the bridge. So basically now they can start putting their rebar down on top of the false work, and eventually they'll come in and pour the concrete for the bridge deck. And you can see the size of the cranes there compared to the truck traffic. Here's a recent photo of the Tulare Morrison roundabout. Like I say, those areas, those concrete island areas you see there are now filled with stamped concrete. So getting close. This is not very exciting. This is what well 43 looks like. Basically a large generator, a concrete block building to house some of the well equipment, but there's not much to a well site to look at. This is the Tulare Business Accelerator, the old courthouse building. They're putting up the brick facade. Inside, they went for a very industrial look, kept the open ceilings with the exposed ductwork and piping, painted it all black. They're going to go through and polish the concrete floors. Just kind of leave it in that kind of industrial warehousey look. Outside, there's some improvements associated with that. They're improving the existing parking lot back behind City Hall, new metal building for the police department, their investigations unit, and part of the city engaged the services of NG Solutions to do numerous energy improvement projects throughout the city, like replacing old HVAC units, more efficient units, but one of the bigger ones was the solar canopies. And so those were a component of the parking lot behind City Hall. Just some pictures from Zumwalt Park. We did manage to host some concerts, 3 concerts this fall, even though the project was not complete. They were very successful. I did go to the first concert, and it was a lot of fun. It's going to be a neat venue. And all the artists who participated in those concerts all said very, very positive things and said they would definitely come back. And this is a recent photo on the right of the playground equipment going in. And here's a rendering of what the homeless shelter is going to look like. You can see it's one very large metal building, which would be the main shelter building. There's some smaller modular units for classroom space, a food pantry and kitchen for serving food, multiple restrooms, and an office space and some storage units. This is what it currently looks like. What you see there is the site is obviously being graded, but here's those modular buildings that are going to be part of the modular village. They turned out really nice, and once they're put on their foundations and landscaped all around, I think it's going to be very nice. So that's kind of the end of my presentation. I welcome any questions you might have.
How
I don't think there is any restrictions on the initial intake stage, right? It's low barrier. I think as long as you're abiding by the rules, you're welcome to stay there. Of course, the goal is to advance people through the process and get them out of the state of homelessness, but it's funded through ARPA. ARPA, that was federal money that we got. It was kind of in response to the COVID pandemic. And then I'm trying to remember what some of the other funding sources. We have a federal earmark associated with it. Yeah, the county helped pitched in with some of their ARPA money and some general fund dollars going to it also. CDBG, yeah. And oh, the EARTH funding, that was a encampment resolution fund through the state. So various funding sources are helping with that one. We have a Halo team through our police department, and he was asking if we had like an outreach team that works with it.
From the county that includes social caseworkers as well as alcohol and mental illness counselors as well. So they come to the encampment twice a week. The caseworkers are there 3 times a week. So that's why we've been able to house over 150 people out of that, the original 200 that were there, and now housed permanently because of that wraparound services. Yeah. But I mean, there's still a need for, monitoring and getting ready to move over to the new shelter. It's very different from when the encampment began, because the people that have the real motivation to leave have left. And the people that are still there don't quite have the same level of motivation. They're kind of stuck in their addictions and their mental illness. So it's a different atmosphere there. Now, I used to go there all the time and talk to the people, and now I take somebody with me that they don't feel that safe. So we're looking at building up more safety and helping the residents that are still there to recognize that when they move to the permanent shelter, there's going to be more rules. And they're not going to just be able to hide in their tent and do drugs, So it's going to be different. And we have high hopes, that we'll be able to continue to have the wraparound services. The county has the family health clinic there. They're building a behavioral health clinic there. They'll be right in the center of a lot of services, so that we can really provide them with an opportunity to get out of homelessness and get out, which is the whole goal. And if they don't choose to stay there, once we have capacity for all of them, I mean, Tulare's point in time count of homeless individuals is only 210, but we know there's a lot more than 210. But once we're providing 400 beds, if they don't want to get help and they don't want to stay there, then they'll be asked to leave Tulare, and the police will. So that's a big difference, right? So what our goal is that everyone in Tulare feels safe. Those that are experiencing homelessness, and the rest of us that want to be able to walk downtown and not have excrement on the sidewalk or be fearful because people are talking normally to themselves in the town. So that's really our goal, is to serve all the citizens of Tulare through the shelter. So we're really, and we've been to shelters all over California. There's no shelter that's going to be like ours. Ours really is looking at taking people incrementally from where they are to where they can be in 3 phases, which will give them an opportunity to heal and to get the help they need. Because I mean, some of them have been homeless for 10 years. So I mean, if you have a chance to go down to the encampment, I would encourage you to go down there, because I mean, I have old skin, but their skin is like leather because they've been out in the elements. And they don't even, I mean, it's just almost like they're not humans, because they haven't had any human necessity. So we're providing them with showers and hygiene, with porta potties, with clean tents when they get there. They're not something now. Clean tents, warm sleeping bags, food every day, and then services. And Adventist brings their mobile health unit there twice a week too. So they have, and they have a doctor. So the doctor can actually prescribe medications. So if they're willing, they're help. Does that answer your question? Any other questions about homeless? That seems to be one of the biggest things people want to know about, and that's my thing, so. Thank you, Michael. I'm
No.
sorry I was late.
No, no problem at all.
I would like pretty good school. So are you here because of your social studies teacher, or your civic people provided? What? Government. Is your teacher. My girl over there, a long time ago, no, my grandkids, she knows. So I know more about it, she knows, but what did you get out of it? I mean, this is a lot of information. Yeah. And I don't know if you want to be engineers or that's part of what you're interested in. Yeah. You can see. Yeah, but you can see how complex. Yeah, it is. I was a school teacher for 40 years. I had only been in municipal government for the last 6 years. And just finding out what it takes to fix it straight. Yeah, why don't you fix those potholes? Well, it's not that easy, right? So I think that was interesting. Yeah. Anything else you didn't know that you thought was really interesting? I walked through, I think there's that. Well, and so you know how people delineate between east and west side? Well, I'm on the west side, I serve the west side, that's my district. And the reason they don't have sidewalk and stop lights, that part of the city was built, right? And they're mostly owned by adventurers. And they're not gonna pay, but I mean, I wouldn't either. So we're trying, you know, we're trying to do as much as we can to make every part of Tulare safe and have basic needs. Yeah.
And it's a constantly changing landscape. I mean, years ago, there were funding sources, grant funding sources you could kind of try to go after for like sidewalks. Safe routes to school. Well, redevelopment was great for, going through neighborhoods and they would do those improvements in front of each home, but you could go for a safe route to school grants to, but those programs have changed, priorities have changed. It's not just about putting sidewalk anymore. They're more interested in like having programs at schools to teach kids how to safely ride bikes and things like that. It's just not as easy to get the funding anymore to do these improvements.
From the county or from the
It's
state or the federal?
State and federal.
State and federal.
Yeah.
That's one thing that you find out when you get into this, that there's so many layers. And what we may want to do, the state doesn't, and then the federal doesn't send it to the state, and the state. We're really lucky though in Tulare County. We have a really good partnership with the county.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of good road projects because of our relationship with TK.
Yeah, and that's probably a good point to mention. We have Measure R. It's a countywide transportation sales tax measure. It's half a cent sales tax. That has been huge for the county of Tulare and all the member agencies in bringing dollars. Because now you've got a local funding source that you can go to the state and the feds and say, we can provide this money as a local match, and they'll partner with you, and you can really do some great things with that.
Notice, I don't know, do you guys ever go down West Street to get acres to go to Visalia? That's all been repaid. Now that's a county project, but that really is helping Tulare a lot, because almost everybody that works on this, that's what would that be, the east side of the 99? I don't know. Anyway, they go to work back to Visalia. That's how they get back to Visalia. And that was a horrible road, and now it's all been paved all the way up to Gale. Which is in Tulare. So everything from Cartmill to Gale is Tulare, and everything from Cartmill down is the county. So the county, we have a good relationship with the county. We really work well with them. Yeah. Any other things that excited you? Now you're an engineer for the city.
Yeah. So 5 years basically is, you have to redo them every 5 years. And it's surprising how little they change. And when they do change, they almost always go up. It's kind of frustrating. But yeah, every 5 years for them to remain enforceable, you have to do a new study to confirm.
They use is, it's It's silly.
Well, yeah,
Because I mean, like, they'll say 40 miles an hour here and then 5 blocks down is 20 miles an hour. And it's just so inconsistent, but I know they have a formula when they do it, but
yeah.
it's being so inconsistent.
Basically, they look at, you know, how the roadway changes, if it's the same width,
Yeah.
and break it up into segments based on those, you know, characteristics.
But probably the 6 years that I've been on council, the most complaints that I get are about the roads, about speeding, and about. And those are probably the most. I live right behind the frustrated ballpark. So when all of the homes were on the railroad tracks by Centennial Park, I mean, I was constantly, and we were working on it the whole time, trying to get the railroad, again, it wasn't us, it was the railroad that wouldn't do anything, but everybody thought it was the city, right? City gets money for it. So finally, the railroad gave us permission to be our own law enforcement, and that's when we built establishing the encampment, and we moved all the people. So remember, all of them, they were all the way from Centennial all the way down. And no one is on the railroad anymore because they gave us permission. We had 16 people die. Either just wandered on the track, or they jumped in front of the train, or somebody pushed them in front of the train, died there. And that's just was unacceptable. So the railroad, I think the railroad paid attention when that was happening. Yeah. But a lot of things happening in Tulare, and this department is at the foundation of so many of them.
Yeah, and I wish we could come up with solutions to the speeding.
I know, we tried.
Yeah. You definitely starting to sound,
Some people want speed bumps. The firemen don't want speed bumps. These
Yeah.
people want this stuff, no, can't do that, so it's like,
well, even the people that think they would like speed bumps on the road in front of their house. A lot of times, once they're there,
They don't
they
want it anymore.
decide they don't, yeah, this isn't so great, especially if the speed hump's like right in front of my house or.
So it's,
And they create noise. There's issues where if somebody, driving the way they're not supposed to drive, hits one of those bumps and loses control and, yeah, people just drive too fast.
I started paying attention to myself, because I go going home, I go right by, Rose Two Lake and, Heritage School. And I look down and I'm going 40 miles an hour. So it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be going 25 miles. So it takes a conscious intention to watch the speed limit. And around school, that you need to slow down. Anyway, we appreciate, get some more people to come. What are we talking about next time? We're almost done with the series. She's
that
cute
parks?
names and now she doesn't know what department it is.
The parks already do theirs?
Oh, park?
No, it's,
Economic development, that'll be really interesting, because that's all those big projects, like in the theater. Did you go to any of the conferences? No. We're supposed to run one for oh, there's one. Oh, to take the other part. Yeah, there were. I was out of town. I heard the best.
Clay Walker, yeah.
And then.
You're like, oh.
Now.
Well, you guys need to suggest some, right? Yeah, you guys need to suggest some groups, otherwise you're gonna get stuck with country and classic rock. Yeah.
Yeah, are there any boards and commissions that have issues right now? But you got, we're on application, because we hold the application, as they come up, then we review all the applications. Because we just did that.
Well, thanks, guys.